What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It is here, it is time, it is the day. The One Piece Top 30 has been completed. Now, before we go over the results, I want to explain how we did it this year. Who was included, who wasn't included, things of that nature. So first off, I kind of have two top 30 lists. One was created using the spreadsheet that Brago made for his top 30s. It goes by a list of different attributes that you can input number values into, and that kind of automatically calculates where they are, how many points they have, what rank they lie at in your top 30. So what I did was I created my top 30, so the list of my top 30, and then I made another top 30 with Brago's list. So what we're going to do is we're going to compare the top 30 list that comes from Brago's spreadsheet and the top 30 list that I made. And we're going to see the differences and we're going to see how I feel about those. So without further ado, let's run the top 30 sheet and see where everybody ended up. Okay, those are all the values. So like I said, that was made with Brago's top 30 spreadsheet. Some of the things I kind of had to substitute for. One of the things I added was a portrayal value because the color of the Conqueror was at 10. And I think that weighed the results a little too much in favor of King's Haki users. So I brought that down to 5 and I added portrayal to kind of give people who didn't have King's Haki a fighting chance. Especially because not everyone is confirmed to have it. People are expected to have it. There's a lot going on with Haki, so I kind of wanted to weigh that down so it didn't saturate the pool as much. But now let's look at the comparison between my list and the sheet list. So if you look here, you can see that the top 3 and the bottom 3 all match. It's mostly the content in the middle that kind of gets a little juked around. On the sheet list, Luffy's at 4 while I still have him at 8. And I have him that low because I think the people above him are still capable of beating him in a fight. Luffy has a huge stamina issue. And considering the people above him are all... they're either veteran fighters or they have hacks abilities. Like the Gorosei, for example. I don't necessarily think they're better fighters than Luffy. I think their abilities are just hacks. And yes, I include the Gorosei all as one because I think separating them would take up too much space on the list. I don't think they're as interesting as a separate group. I decided to put them together because, you know, it makes it easier. And actually, if you'll notice, I don't have Kaido or Big Mom on the list this year. And it's not because I discount them as the strongest. I think I just wanted to make it more interesting. And since they haven't been in the story in a while, I figured it was okay to keep them out. I still think if Kaido's alive, that he's going to be top 1. And Big Mom is probably top 3. I might put her at top 4. But considering we haven't seen those characters, I will omit them from the list just to make it more interesting. I do have Luffy above Kizaru, even though we have the entire dispute about Kizaru giving Luffy food. I think if the fight goes all out and Luffy isn't trying to do a couple of things at once, like it's just a fight, there's no protecting people, there's no letting people escape. At this point, Luffy was just being a decoy. I don't think Kizaru was going all out either. I think in a straight fight, in a complete one-on-one, I would still give the edge to Luffy. It would be a high diff fight, no doubt about that. No one's getting washed here, but I'm gonna give the edge to Luffy. On my list, I have Zoro at 12, but the sheet puts him at 14 below Katakuri and Yamato. I think the issue with Yamato is that there's not enough fighting experience to beat Zoro here. We have the hockey, we have the fruit, we have the strength, but there's just the experience is lacking. I think really that's where the discrepancy is. With Katakuri, that's a bit of a different story. Katakuri has the fighting experience and the hockey to back it up. I think ultimately Zoro's fighting style works better against Kat than Luffy's does, and that being the only reason I would give him the edge here. Whereas Luffy has to interact with Kat in a melee form, and Zoro can kind of keep his distance. Zoro can, if he needs to get in close, he can get in close, get out. It's a bit more versatile. Other major ones, Sabo's at 14 on my list. Sabo's at 21 on the ranking list. On the list of people above him, I think Sabo is beating Law for sure. The other ones, I think he's beating Marco. I think he's beating Doflamingo, Green Bull. I think he can take on most of this list, if not all of the list of people above him. He probably just lacks feats, but to be fair, Lucky Roo has no feats and he's above him, so I'm not really entirely sure how that works out. I guess that's on me for giving Lucky Roo a bit more than he should have. I keep Shanks's crew at a high level because they're supposed to be relatively balanced with power, and because of how close knit they've been kept by Oda, they have to have some level of high portrayal of strength. Otherwise, Shanks in his position does not make sense. Marco is an interesting one. I have him at 19, reaches as 15 on the list. Marco, I think, is very good at long duration fights, but his damage output isn't exactly there. He can take hits, he can heal hits, he can dish out damage. We saw him fighting with 2 Yonko commanders at the same time and doing pretty well. I think the issue with that we saw was that he wasn't dishing out enough damage at once. That's where I think he's lacking, and that's why he's not as high, despite being a YC1. If he could pump out levels of damage that matched how much he could take and heal, then he'd be like an all-time threat. But he's more accustomed to long-winded fights that they're kind of going back and forth. He's a staller pretty much. This list has Garp below Blackbeard and Kizaru, and the Goro-san, which I don't necessarily agree with. It's weird I'm saying I don't agree with it because I made both lists, but I think Garp beats Gorosei, I think he beats Luffy, Kizaru. From what we saw, he has the ability to contend with admiral level characters, and do other things in the meantime. Like he can fight Kuzan, he can level an island with a punch. He's fighting against a Logia user with nothing but his fists and hockey. He has the potential. Like he is currently the hockey man. Until Shanks does something with hockey, Garp is currently the hockey man. And if Blackbeard didn't have so many hacks, I would probably put Garp above him. I think ultimately Blackbeard would do his Blackbeard thing and find a skeevy way to beat that fight. In a straight one-on-one, I might put Garp above that. But at some point, I do have to start giving Blackbeard some credit. As much as I don't want to, as much as I think he's an idiot when it comes to fighting, he's still got 2 adult fruits. He's had time to train now. Like he has to have something. We've seen him use hockey, which I didn't think we'd see for a while. So he's got enough credentials to be credible. But yeah, Shanks is top one right now. I don't have Loki on the list because he's too much of an unknown, I think. I don't have Dragon on the list. He's too much of an unknown. I don't have Emu on the list. I tried to exclude characters that just wouldn't be fun to rank. Like, Dragon's been up and down the list for as long as I can remember. And at this point, it's just like, why bother? I think Loki's too new to really find himself on the list. Surprisingly enough, not a lot of Charlotte family on here. I think it's only Katakuri. Smoothie has such poor performance that she just never makes the top 30. Despite being a YC2, she just doesn't make it. I would see Cracker on here before I saw Smoothie. But that's the list. As always, this is super fun to make. I like the idea of the spreadsheet. I might try and tweak it a little bit to fit the way I kind of view the story. I kind of did the Brago thing last minute. I just remembered that I had it. So I used that at the end there. I think I might try and tweak it and make it to where it fits the way I view the story and power scaling a little bit more. That way it reflects kind of how I want the list to go. But I think it worked out well for a first time. As always, if you feel like posting your list, if you agree, disagree, leave it in the comments below. Don't forget Brago's having his top 30 today. Definitely go check that out. It's gonna be hype as it always is. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.